creating something from nothing was one of the most professionally rewarding experiences I've had to this day.
One of the things I find fascinating about your candidacy is how personal your career choice was for you. So tell us a little bit more about your career path and how you decided that you would make a leap from a dream to another dream.
It was a lot of serendipity along the way. I, like many business school applicants, started management consulting at Bain in Toronto and thoroughly enjoyed the experience there. I found myself at the NBA really by chance. I grew up playing basketball competitively and had long been a fan of the sport and interested in the business behind basketball. But it was only through kind of Bain's externship program did I start to think about other opportunities beyond Bain. It's a rather long and circuitous story, but really just through chance found myself ending up at the NBA after meeting a handful of folks in the league office in New York, and really loved it. To your point, it was in many ways a dream come true. I wasn't playing basketball professionally, but I was helping grow and build the sport that I loved so much. And as soon as I was at the NBA, I tried to apply that kind of consulting skill set that a lot of folks who are looking at business school likely have, what Bain calls the analytical toolkit. And really over my 3 years at the NBA, gravitated towards more and more entrepreneurial and startup experiences, and really found myself in kind of this entrepreneur in residence, EIR slot, helping Adam Silver and the NBA's leadership team build the NBA 2K League as one of 4 folks who kind of built another league within the NBA. And again, it was an amazing experience, but it really ignited a startup desire that I didn't have before. And going from phone calls and presentations to fans and customers, creating something from nothing was one of the most professionally rewarding experiences I've had to this day. So that's the feeling I've been chasing ever since. And that's kind of what started me down thinking more startups and new ventures beyond the business of basketball.
So effectively, you're in an entrepreneurial environment at the MBA, and the passion for entrepreneurship overtakes the dream and leads you to business school. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. There was a feeling there that I wanted to pursue, that I wanted to chase. It was something to do with startups and earlier stage and creating something from nothing. And that became a goal of mine to really pursue during business school, in addition to, frankly, just being a nerd. And a campus environment is my nirvana. So the opportunity to spend a couple of years doing that and also testing some professional hypotheses was the best of both worlds.
You very much lived another dream of most people, in addition to the world of professional sports, where you were going to cool events like the All-Star Game and rubbing shoulders with the beautiful people. The dream in the MBA world, nothing gets better than getting into Harvard and Stanford. Ultimately, you chose Stanford. Is it fair to say because you felt that it could better satiate your entrepreneurial needs?
It's worth mentioning I was a reapplicant. So it didn't just happen that I applied and got in everywhere I applied. I applied in round 2 of, I guess, 2016 to 3 schools and didn't have any success. I'm sure you'll be humble here, but 6 months later, 2017 round 1 intake, I applied to 4 schools and got into 3 of them. So it's not as simple as I got into the best programs. It took a couple at bats. Both schools are amazing. I had really in-depth experiences at both, having traveled to both several times for visits and to see friends and other folks. And I did pick Stanford because its flexibility in the program and the curriculum, really setting students up to make the 2 years into whatever they wanted to do. Whereas I got the sense that HBS, it's an incredible program, was much more structured, and I wouldn't necessarily have had the same flexibility or support to perhaps pursue my own startup, which is what I ended up spending much of the 2 years doing.
So you attacked the application process like a consultant. I mean, tell us about how you structured your time and how much time you committed, if you recall.
Sure.
Tell us about the process itself.
Applying to school is all consuming. It's intense, and it's even harder when you do it a second time. So I knew, Jeremy, when we partnered, that this was going to be, my last time, if you will, applying, and I wanted to kind of really put everything into it. If memory serves, I think I worked backwards from not just a deadline, but a deadline of buffer, and really wanted to incorporate adequate time for like edits and reviews. So I think I might have even learned this from you, that good writing is really good editing, that you need to get kind of early drafts out so you can let them sit and come back at them with fresh eyes. And I think together we had a fairly cohesive kind of timeline that built in adequate, days or weeks to look at drafts, knowing that it was going to be an iterative process.
You also weren't afraid to tear it up. That's one thing that I remember. You were not afraid to tear it up. You were like,
Yeah.
okay, let's just
Yeah, the
start this over.
The temptation, certainly the second time around, was to make minor tweaks. Yeah, and I think that would have been disastrous. So yeah, starting from scratch in hindsight, easy to say, was the right approach. But I think like just the accountability and some fresh eyes and the partnership of whether it's a consultant or a close friend, or the partnership of someone you know and trust who can bring out the best in who you are, whether that's, consultant turned sports person or any other background, just making sure that you're putting your best foot forward on the page. And that takes a healthy amount of time and effort.
Dan, what advice would you give based on your experience, either as an applicant or as a student, to anyone who's applying to business school?
I would say two things very specifically. Number one is be the best version of who you are. It will be tempting to look left and right and find folks who have created not-for-profits or, made $1 million investments, and maybe that's you and that's great. But if it's not, I should say, resist the temptation to pretend to be those people. Whichever school you're applying to, cater the best of what you've accomplished, the sincere interests you have with what the school can perhaps equip you to do, and tell your story like no one else can, is the first. Just really be the best version of yourself, and not the story you think they want to hear. And the second thing is ask for help. Do it together with someone, anyone, whether that's professional help or friend. I think it's a very consuming experience to apply to business school that requires standardized testing and essays and reference letters, and you could drive yourself crazy trying to do that by yourself and managing that process by yourself. So I think a lot about the idea of, if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. So find your little tribe of folks who support you and want the best for you, and ask for help and lean on them. And for me, that was Jeremy, and he was amazing and is amazing, and lucky to call him a friend. 5 years later, wow. But it could really be anyone. Just I'd encourage you to do it together with a team.